Okay, so today's recipe is spaghetti and meatballs. A really simple recipe that I'm going to show you how to make it. So to start with, what we need is a pound or 500 grams of mincemeat. Now, a lot of the recipes tell you to add breadcrumbs. I don't like to do that because I think it just affects the texture and the flavour. I just want it to be meat, they're meatballs. So I'm using beef mince, although you could use a mixture of beef and pork mince if you like. So what I've done to get the texture right, so I don't need to use the breadcrumbs, is I've put the meat in a bowl and I've basically smashed it with a pestle and mortar. So if you can see, the texture now is a bit more, well, it's not so broken up like you see when you buy the meat in the packet. So now I've done that, I'm now going to add some black pepper. I'll put some black pepper in, give it a bit of flavour, and then I'm going to add some garlic. Now the recipe says 1 clove of garlic, but I quite like it, so I'm going to put a bit more in. And here is garlic press. Put some garlic in, so we're going to squidge it in. Oops. And in that goes. I might put 2 in, I think. There we go. How's that? Give it a bit of flavour. In goes the garlic. And I just need to mix that up with my spatula. Give it a mix. Okay, so all the pepper and the garlic has gone in. And the other thing I'm going to add into this is about 100 grams of parmesan. Now I've already grated some with my microplane grater, so I'm going to put that in, and then I'm going to just add a little bit more, so you can see, in that goes. Give it a nice Italian flavour. So I'm mixing that now so we can get all the flavours in. Now the other ingredient I'm going to add into here is some parsley. Now often if you buy parsley like this in a packet, you might use a couple of sprigs to use with the recipe, and then the rest ends up wilting and going in the bin. So what I do is, if I haven't used it all, I chop it very finely, I put it in a little tub like this, and I freeze it. And then every time I need even just a little teaspoon or a little pinch, I can go to the fridge for that. So I've got about 3 tablespoons in here, which I'm going to add to my mixture. There we go. I'm going to mix that in. So when it's all mixed in, the next stage is to make the meatballs, and because I bashed all the meat and squashed it all and made it into a smoother texture, then it will make nice meatballs. Now I should say first, obviously the first thing you should do is put your apron on, so make sure you've got your apron on before you start the recipe. So there we go, I think you can see I've just mixed it all in there. So what I'm going to do now is make the meatballs. So I just need to break a piece off, and then you decide how big you want them. If you want them a bit smaller, you can make them a bit smaller. So I think that sort of size looks quite good, and because I've squashed the meat, it will hold together. We don't need to have the breadcrumbs in there to sort of bulk it out. So I'm going to put them on my plate here. See that? There we go. So I'm going to make a few ready for the next stage, which is the sauce. Okay, so we've made the meatballs. We've got about 18 out of that mixture, so that's enough to feed the whole family. So what you need to do now, 2 things. You can either put them straight into the tomato sauce that we're going to make, or what I prefer to do is cook them off a bit first. We call that searing, or just sealing the outside. So we can either, there's 2 ways you can do that. You can either put some oil in a pan and just sort of lightly fry them, or what I prefer to do is put them on a baking tray and then put them in the oven for maybe about 10 minutes in a hot oven, just to get the outside of them a little bit sealed so it doesn't all leak into the sauce, and then they will hold together nicely and taste much better, I think.
Go.
Okay, so we're going to make the sauce now, and we're going to start with some onions. I started with 2 smallish onions like this. You could use a big one. And I've peeled them and I've cut them in half. Here they are. So we need to cut them into small pieces. So this is the way to do it. You need a sharp knife. So if you're quite young, you will need some help with this. But the easiest way to cut onions into small pieces is like this. So I've kept the root on, the root at the bottom, so that it will keep together. And all you need to do is slice some slices down the onion like this, and then slice across, and you will get some small pieces, but be careful to keep your fingers out of the way of the blade. So cut the end off. Here we go with this one, and just be careful because onions do make you cry and make your eyes sting. It's not very nice. So that's 2. And 3, and the 4th one. There we go. And also with the onions, I'm going to add a bit more garlic because we like garlic. It's really good for you. It's full of antioxidants and anti-inflammatories, very good, as are onions, really good. So I'm going to crush the garlic. I've got the 1 piece from left over from before. So I'm going to put there. I've got another piece that I've peeled here. That's going in as well. And then I need to make the sauce. So here I've got my pan. I'm going to move the camera a bit closer now so you can see me cooking. Okay, so I'm going to put it on the heat, and I'll put some oil in. Got some oil. This is olive oil I'm using, just about, maybe about a tablespoon of oil in there. And so I'll wait till it warms up a little bit. And then I'm going to add the onions that I've chopped and the garlic and let them cook through. So in they go. You can hear them sizzling. That means the fat's hot enough. It's quite a low heat, or maybe a medium heat. Just give them a stir to coat them in the oil, and then now the next main ingredient of this is obviously it's a tomato sauce. So we need tomatoes. Now you can use a tin of tomatoes like this, but what I've done, and I've been getting things out of my freezer, as you can probably tell. We grow a lot of tomatoes in the summer, and some that were left over that didn't get cooked, didn't get eaten. I've basically cooked them and put them into little containers, so we've got quite a few of these in the freezer. It's just fresh tomatoes that have been cooked. So you can either use fresh, or you can use a tin of either whole or chopped tomatoes. It's fine. So when my onions have cooked and softened enough, I'm going to add the tomato. Just give that another minute or so. Okay, and we mustn't make it too hot. We mustn't make it too hot because we don't want the meatballs to break up once they're in there. So these are nearly done, nearly nice and soft. I'm going to add in the tomatoes. There they go. So we just need to leave those now to cook and boil up a bit, and then when it's all boiled up, I am going to add the meatballs. It's gone very quiet now. So you could turn the heat up at this point and cook them away. So while our sauce is cooking, I'm going to add a bit of tomato puree because this will give it a nicer flavour and thicken it up a little bit. So there you go, just about a tablespoon. I'll put in just a blob and just give it a stir. Now, I found some mushrooms in the fridge, so I thought they might go in there quite nicely. So I'm just going to prepare those. I'm going to cut the ends off, so they've been in the dirt, and I've wiped them so they're nice and clean. And I've even peeled them, although you don't have to. So I'll cut them into quarters, I think, or maybe slightly less than a quarter, because they're quite big. There we go. Let's make six pieces out of each one, and then I'll pop that in the sauce. You could slice them if you don't want to chop them, and just add a nice extra bit of flavour. There we go, so they're all going in now. There we go, mix them in. Now while that's just cooking, nearly done, I'm going to show you the meatballs, which have been in the oven for about 10 minutes. There they are, look. Now the other beauty of doing them like this is all the fat, the excess fat that's in the meat has all come out, and I've actually poured it away into a bowl, so you can see there's a lot of fat that's come out, which we don't really want to have too much of that. So there they are, nicely browned, only 10 minutes in a hot oven. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put them in the sauce. And there you go. Look at that. Lovely meatballs going in. Yep. So we just stir them into the sauce, and then they're going to cook in there for maybe another 5 or 10 minutes. Just, it doesn't have to be exact, just till they're all heated through, because the meatballs are cooked now, they've been in the oven. And the other thing I'm going to add to this when it's nearly cooked is some basil. Got some basil leaves here. I've got a plant growing in a pot that I got from the supermarket. I'm going to break the leaves off and put them in there to give it a nice aromatic flavour. There you go, so that's meatballs and spaghetti. Now you can make spaghetti, just dried spaghetti. I've actually got some noodles that I've had left over from a meal the other day. So I'm going to use those, some Chinese noodles. Doesn't matter, any kind of noodles, you could use any kind of pasta, whatever your favourite is. So just a few more minutes and this will be ready to serve. So now the most important thing at this stage is to check your seasoning, make sure it tastes alright, so have a little taste. Right, so that needs a little bit of salt. Sprinkle some salt in and maybe a bit more pepper. And just give it a stir and taste it again. That's better. So this is nearly ready. I've got my basil leaves here. Just going to tear them up a little bit, put them in. They give a nice flavour too. And there you go. Lovely. And then just the noodles. Now, like I said, I had some noodles left over from a meal the other day, so rather than waste them, I'm just going to put some hot water over them to get them freshened up and heated up, and then just leave them for a couple of minutes and then drain the water off, and there we have our noodles. Of course you can make spaghetti or pasta in the normal way, boil it up with some water for maybe about 10 minutes and drain it, and there you've got your meal. So I'm just going to finish off cooking it and then I'll plate it up and show you the finished result. So here we have the noodles. I'm just going to put them in the dish. There we go. We'll have two, shall we? There we go. Lovely. Okay, and then we will put some of these lovely meatballs on there. There we go. Look at that. Meatballs and tomato sauce. That's really good. So that's our lunch. And if you want the recipe, I will put it in the comments so that you can follow it yourselves afterwards. And I hope that was useful, and I hope you enjoy your meatballs as much as we're going to enjoy ours. So bye for now.